I think to be a great storyteller, you have to be incredibly observational. As simple as, I remember when I worked a shitty day job, I was walking to and from the train trying to grab as many photos as I could of these moments of insignificant and mundane life that I found beautiful. And that practice is unfortunately a disease. It sticks with you. You're always looking, oh, what's that? Oh, why is that pretty? I like that. But I think it's a practice that if you're creative, you should be constantly assessing. Why does that work? And to make a good story, you need to know why it looks the way it does makes you feel. Why did this person do this? Why are they doing this? And you can kind of just find your narrative through that. At the end of the day, it's just a lot of practice. Don't stop. I am Alex Donnelly, and I am a culture builder. The media landscape of 2025 it's weird, for sure. I think the transcendence between, having a really strong movie theater experience and knowing like, hey, this is a blockbuster, or hey, this is a really beautiful indie flick, and being able to go to a theater, and that kind of dying out is a weird variable. But also like, however many fucking 60 streaming services, blah, 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 blah. And like, I grew up with basic cable, and that's kind of the same shit. I just think the landscape it's as fluid as it's ever been. And it's not anything I stay awake at night wondering what to do about. I think the reason that something like YouTube really works is because there is a focus on creativity at its core. And that's not, in my opinion, the way that Hollywood structures itself. Hollywood, big Hollywood. I think Hollywood structures itself on what can bring dollars, what can fill the pockets of people who are not working super hard to make these movies. I don't get super excited to see the 15th Marvel movie in theaters in 3 months. I don't give a shit. But what I do get really excited about is this really abstract, weird, very well shot little indie flick, And if that shit's on YouTube, I don't give a fuck. It doesn't matter to me. I don't think the landscape matters. I do think it has a lot of complexity to how we're being paid and where that money's coming from. I do think that's incredibly complicated, but of course it would be. When we started the film industry, everything was unobtainable. We knew nothing about how to fit this weird little celluloid into these cameras and get it ticking and moving and how to expose it. It just looked like a play that was shot. And now we're doing these like weird things in every other movie. Talk about AI, talk about CGI, talk about all these things that are tools at your capability. You're building a house with a hammer and nails. You're building it with like the whole Milwaukee tool set of power tools, and that is inevitably going to change the price of how much a house costs. But does that change the type of house you should make? There's a lot of attention when you're building it with very few tools. Making a movie with just 4 people, every person in that movie is working their ass off to make that thing. When you have 1,000 people working, that's not always the case. I'm not saying it isn't. I know that long credits doesn't mean bad movie. But what I am saying is that I've worked on plenty of sets. I don't even know the project name, and I don't even know who it's for. What I think really matters is that compassion and that zest for what you're making. And if we're talking about success as a monetary thing, I might be the wrong guy to be talking to. I think to be a great storyteller, you have to be incredibly observational. And that can be as simple as, I remember when I worked a shitty day job, I was walking to and from the train trying to grab as many photos as I could of these moments of insignificant and mundane life that I found beautiful. And that practice is unfortunately a disease. It sticks with you. You're always looking, oh, what's that? Oh, why is that pretty? I like that. But I think it's a practice that if you're creative, you should be constantly assessing. Why does that work? And to make a good story, you need to know why it looks the way it does makes you feel. To the tune of our conversation earlier, I think it's about asking yourself why a lot. And that's what storytelling is. It's just, why did this person do this? Why are they doing this? And you can kind of just find your narrative through that. And it's, at the end of the day, it's just a lot of practice. Don't stop. If I could talk to my 12-year-old self, who is this incredibly impassioned, like just in love with filmmaking individual, I think about him often, because I think like, that dumbass kid got me to where I am now. And now I'm responsible for that kid's dream. That 12-year-old came up with this kooky thought, and now here I am, so much later, still trying to fulfill that dream. And if I could say anything, it'd be more advice about how to treat people and how to exercise that creativity, and less of, follow your passion. Because boy, did that boy follow his passion. I think he was a little too stubborn to get there, but stubbornness is a lot like passion. Sometimes they're one and the same. Stubbornness is not a hard opinion held loosely. It's just a hard opinion. So you need to be able to exercise that compassion, because compassion is where true storytelling begins and ends. Adaptation is a really funny thing, because I think about it all the time. I think about it in the same way that I think about experimentation. As a business owner, but also as a creative, it's something that I think is pivotal to your continued success. You have to be able to adapt. You have to be able to pivot. And I think that's what documentary filmmaking is. You're constantly trying to assess, what route are we going down? Do I need to spend more time with that person, or should I spend our time with this person? As a creative, more so, I think how I'm adapting all the time is consuming. I'm taking in what is culturally happening, and what trends I'm seeing, what things are working, what things are not, and trying to see where that lines up with what I'm interested in. I think it's a really, really dangerous road to follow a trend and to adapt to what's currently working, because I feel like by the time you sort of click into what's working, you're too late to the party. The most important thing is doing what's true to you, and if you can make that successful, fuck yeah, great. If you can't, I think you should still keep doing that. You'll just get better at it over time. What drives me is like a very large cup of coffee in the morning and then a Celsius in the afternoon. But what drives me creatively is like, this passion feels insatiable. I don't feel like I can get enough. And sometimes if you eat too much of a good thing, you'll get sick. And I have gotten sick. You do burn out. And I think you need to be a multidisciplinary artist in order to be a healthy artist. And that can mean you're doing really shitty drawings in your sketchbook, but you're also a filmmaker, i.e. this one, or you're writing poems that make no sense. And that kind of gives you a little bit more weight to stand on. If you put all of yourself into a singular thing, it becomes very fragile, at least from my experience. That's what I've found drives me, is that the beauty of life and the beauty of that experimentation is it should be celebrated, and that challenge or that shitty fuck it moment should be celebrated. I think that's sort of the purpose of all of it, is to take it and go, holy shit, this terrible thing happened to me. How privileged am I to be able to have learned that experience? But in the same breath, this wonderful thing happened to me. How privileged am I to have that experience? And that's what drives me, is that there's no perfect way to do this life. And so you might as well just put your fucking foot on the accelerator and do your best to try and avoid the cars as you're going. You do need to stop and take a break every once in a while, though. I'm Alex Donnelly. Thanks for checking out 24/7 HH.